A mini hoon on the kaka. I'm Bernard Hickey, and joining us is Christina Leung from the New Zealand Institute of Economic Research, who yesterday, Tuesday, put out the quarterly survey of business opinion. Christina, for those who aren't familiar with the old QSBO, could you tell us how important, how long running, and how it's put together?
Yep. So every quarter we survey around 1,000 businesses across the four key sectors. So manufacturers, builders, retail and services sector, asking them a range of questions to do a stock take of the economy, and also in terms of trying to have a gauge on some of the forward-looking indicators as well. So two key measures that we ask are how businesses are feeling about general economic conditions over the coming 6 months. So that provides what we call the headline business confidence. Now, we also ask firms what they're actually seeing in regards to activity in their own business. And that's for both what they saw in the past quarter and what they saw in the next quarter. So that then provides a more timely and more accurate indicator of actual, for example, GDP activity, because it's asking firms what they're actually seeing when it comes to activity rather than how they're feeling in general. As we've seen over the history of the survey, headline business confidence does tend to be a bit more volatile than firms' own domestic trading activity. It is the second in the world's second longest running survey. So it provides, going back since the 1960s, so it does provide that very rich data set over the business cycles of what firms have been doing in regards to a wide range of things. So we asked them what they're experiencing when it comes to costs, what they've done with prices, what they've done in terms of headcount, whether they've increased or cut staff numbers, what they're planning to do for investment, both when it comes to investment in buildings, investment in plant and machinery over the coming year, and a wide range of things that relate to demand as well. And what we've seen over since December last year is that there's been that gap between what firms have experienced, which has been generally a contraction in activity, versus that expectation of a recovery in demand when it comes to own business over the next quarter. We also see that divergence between expectations and reality comes through in terms of that headline business confidence. So when we ask firms what they're expecting in terms of the general economic outlook, since December last year, well, since the Reserve Bank cut the OCR back in August last year, there's been that optimism that things will improve. However, generally, it's disappointed relative to these expectations. What we've seen is that demand has remained persistently weak. And so in this latest quarter, for the September quarter, our NZIER quarterly survey of business opinion showed that business confidence is starting to fade away. So while optimists still outnumber pessimists, the proportion of firms that are feeling positive about that general economic outlook is easing.
And which of the answers or the questions are most closely correlated or a leading indicator for GDP? Because what we think about the rest of the economy is interesting, but not as closely connected as what we know is happening with our own businesses. So what's the best of the bunch in terms of as a leading indicator?
If we look across the range of indicators within our NZIER quarterly survey of business opinion, we would consider the firm's own domestic trading activity over the past quarter as one of the better indicators in terms of what it means for GDP. Now, that makes sense when you consider the fact that it actually asks firms based on activity in your over that past quarter that you've just experienced, has it been stronger, lower, or the same? And then from that, the proportion, we work out what's been that proportion of firms net on a net basis that's either up, down, or the same. And from that, when we line that up with how GDP has performed, it's generally been a pretty good indicator of where GDP will be.
And what did you find in terms of the answers around investment and hiring and prices and costs?
So what's been interesting in this latest quarter is that while firms are still expecting things to improve in the next quarter, this is not really coming through when it's what they're in terms of what they're actually doing. So when we look at investment intentions, there was a decline in both investment plans for buildings and for plant and machinery over the coming year. Also noting that this decline in investment plans in plant and machinery is a turnaround from what we saw, this rebound that we'd seen in the previous quarter, which we suspect reflects the impact of the May budget announcement of that investment boost with the tax incentive for firms to go out there and invest in plant and machinery. So it does appear that in that previous quarter, it did encourage firms to think about investment in plant and machinery. However, likely because the fact that with demand in their own business continuing to disappoint, this has led firms to be more cautious about investment plans now over that coming year. We also see that caution coming through when it comes to hiring. So the fact that with firms continuing to cut staff numbers, you're still seeing that widespread caution there, even though firms are saying that they expect things to get better in the next quarter.
What are these results for the September quarter saying about what might happen with GDP in the September quarter?
So it does suggest that the particular likelihood that GDP from a quarterly change anyway is going to be broadly flat. Now, following on from the weak 0.9% that we saw in the June quarter, decline in the June quarter, having a flat result on the back of that would point to the economy remaining in still a fairly weak state. So overall, I would couch it as a fairly weak picture for the New Zealand economy for the September quarter.
Yeah, we're speaking on Wednesday afternoon after the Reserve Bank cut the official cash rate by 50 basis points to 2.5%. We're looking, therefore, at an official cash rate that's been cut from 5.5% to 2.5% inside just over a year. Normally that does the trick. What's going on here?
It's definitely been a very disappointing recovery so far. And I would say the nature of the fact that, and we can see this come through in our QSBO, people would be including ourselves, would expect that with the sheer amount of stimulus from low interest rates, surely things would be improving by now. And while we're seeing glimmers of improvement here and there, it is still a fairly patchy recovery at the moment, I would couch it as, in terms of what's going on. While the labour market generally lags broader economic activity, the fact that we've still got the labour market still remaining soft, given the cutbacks in the public sector, but also a focus in the private sector on cost cutting and restructuring as well. Overall, with these the softness in the labour market and uncertainty over employment prospects, even as many households face lower mortgage repayments when they reprice on those fixed term mortgage rates, instead of going out there and treating it as increased discretionary income that they can then go on to spend, I would say that with the overall uncertain nature of employment prospects, a lot of households are choosing to pay down debt or just tuck away some precautionary savings.
And just one thing, the NZIR survey does not include agriculture, which has had a better time of it than the rest of the economy in the last couple of years. How much of a factor is that in terms of considering the QSBO's impact?
So while the NZIR quarterly survey of business opinion does not directly survey the agriculture sector, it does, given that it does survey food manufacturing, for example, I would couch it as it captures some of the second order impacts of what's going on in agriculture. That said, though, if we look at the results of our latest QSBO across the different regions, there's no clear what we've been talking about, that two-speed nature of the economy. It doesn't really come through in our regional set of results. For example, the fact that Auckland was the most upbeat of the regions surveyed, and then also Canterbury as well to some degree, and Nelson. Versus some of the weaker areas. So there's no clear signs of that two-speed nature that we would be expecting given the higher global commodity prices.
Thank you very much to Christina Leung, who's the Deputy Chief Executive of the New Zealand Institute of Economic Research, after the release of the September quarter QSBO, or as we call it in the trade, the QSBO. The longest second, I learned something new today, the second longest running business confidence survey in the world. And the best per capita, I'm sure. Thank you very much, Christina. Lovely to see you here in a mini Hoon.